Hello everybody. Today I wanted to take a look at this comic book which I recently got on eBay. I felt that it was, I believe it's been trimmed, and I wanted to go over why I think it's trimmed and maybe let you know about some things to look for as far as trimming goes. Now, the seller probably didn't even know it was trimmed. It was not mentioned as being trimmed, but I think it's been trimmed at least on the top edge. And let's take some closer looks. So it's hard to tell from this if it's been trimmed, but if you take your finger and just lightly go along the top of the cover, you can feel it's not perfectly straight. There's a couple of small bends in it, and if I can just zoom in on this, you can actually see one of these bends right up here in the corner, right about there. Can you see that? It looks like a little curve. And the corners are all like points. And I believe that the whole book was trimmed, at least along the top edge. It looks just really clean cuts all through it. And that same curve in the top goes throughout most of the book. And you get to the back cover, it just looks too straight, or not too straight, but too fine an edge to it for a comic that's over 60 years old. This is from 1952, I believe. You know, they're really, I don't know why anyone would trim it. If you look at the binding, or rather the spine, it looks to be in very nice shape. And so I couldn't imagine the edges to be in bad shape. Maybe they just wanted to make it perfect. Normally, it's the easier way to tell if something has been trimmed is if the spine has a lot of dings on it and is rather worn, but the other three sides do not show anywhere, then that's a pretty good indication that it's been trimmed. And I guess you can use one of those paper cutters or a razor blade. I'm not really sure what the technique is. You can cut, I suppose you can just trim the whole comic all at once, or maybe if you just want to trim the cover, you just open the cover, put it on your paper cutter and say start here and cut out to there. That would give you a bit of an angle in the paper. So that's another thing I want to look at right now to show you how this compares to another comic that has straight edges. In other words, you can put them up against each other, make sure the spines are lined up, and then just see if there's like a difference in the angle. So here it looks like it's pretty thin right here, the part that's showing, and as you get closer to the end, there's more showing. So it's almost like they would have trimmed the book from the spine outward. I'll just line them up like this. Now I've got the bottom of these two all lined up. the spine is lined up. And there you go. Now here's another way to do it. No, actually, let's try this other comic book. A comic book from that same period of time. Western Rough Riders. Now, comics back then weren't always the same size. Some were wider than others, but as far as the height goes, they're generally about the same height. Now this one's kind of short, but again, if I line them up carefully with the spines, and then let's see how this looks. This one actually doesn't look too bad. It's almost even all the way across. I gotta make sure the spine is lined up correctly. This one doesn't look too bad. Let's just line it up against a perfectly straight surface. Like this. Let's see if that's straight. That appears to be pretty straight, but you have to line it up vertically too. So let's try with this yardstick, and then put the spine against it, and then do it. And now there's a gap. There's a gap right there. So it's not perpendicular. The top is not perpendicular to the spine. If I was to put this one back with this other old one, let's see how that one does. See, now that one lines up really good. There's no gap, it's straight across. Let's try the this one again. Let's try the bottom of it. Flip it over, put the spine against the yardstick. Make sure it's flat. And the bottom of it looks like it's not trimmed. At least it's very, very straight going across. So evidently it's just the top that might be trimmed. The other thing you can do is find another example of this very same issue on eBay or another comic book site and compare the covers. And although the wrapping is probably going to be different, it still should have the same area. In other words, if, for example, the insignia of the publisher on this book goes right up to the edge, and you find another one where there's some space in between the insignia and the edge of the book, then on that other one you will have less on the right side. And I've done that, and width-wise it looked pretty much the same as others. Unfortunately, it's hard to tell lengthwise, because at the top of this it is just blue, and it's hard to compare that on the monitor. You can't really measure it. There are no details to look for. On the bottom there were some details, but not on the top. So I think this one's trimmed. I'm going to ask for a refund. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to show. If I can get my magnifying glass. Like there's a little piece cut here. right there. Right there. Let's see if I can get this. How do you focus that? Manual focus. There we go. So there's a little piece of paper right there, and that's, I believe that's a bindery tear. It's got a pretty sharp looking cut to it almost. Right there. Looks almost like it was cut with a blade. Let's take a look at the cover again real closely too. So right there you can see a little bit of a curve right there. And if you roll your thumb across it, there's like, it's not perfectly even all the way across. Yeah, right along here. Too good to be true. Alright, that's all I have for today. I hope that helps. Just be careful out there, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.